Begin the Gemara today on Daf Lamed Aleph, right at the beginning of the Amud, Tanan. So this is actually in the middle of a subject. So let me explain you what we were speaking about before. In the Mishnah, the last Mishnah on Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Aleph, it's talking about a person that made a neder not to have a no from his friend. So the Mishnah there says, you're allowed to return him a lost object that belongs to him. And then the Mishnah says that if it's a place that people get paid for returning this lost object, for example, because you were in the middle of your work and you took off from your work in order to return it to him, so you get paid, compensated for the loss of the money that you lost from your work. So then, that hana that you usually get paid, if you're not getting that hana, the person that you're returning the object to may not keep it as well, because if he's going to keep it, then he's having hana from you. He's not paying you, so he's having hana from you. So the Mishnah says, tipul hana lehektish. So that money he can't keep, he has to just give it to hektish. Okay, that was the Mishnah. Then in the Gemara over here on Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, there were two opinions. What are we speaking about over here? When we speak about the person that found this object and he's returning it to someone, who exactly was asur from who in this Mishnah here? So one opinion in the Gemara over here is that the Baal Aveda is asur to have hana from the person that found it. And therefore the Mishnah is saying, you're allowed to return to him this Aveda because it's his. You're not giving him anything of your own money. You're giving him his money. You're giving him his item that he lost. So therefore you're allowed to return it to him. But then the Gemara says, if it was also in the reverse, if also the person that found the item also made a neder that he should be asur to have hana from the person that the Aveda belongs to him, you won't be allowed to return the Aveda to him. And the Gemara said a very interesting reason. The reason is because while you're doing this mitzvah of returning this Aveda to this person, you're saving yourself some money. How are you saving yourself some money? This is what's called Isik b'mitzvah, patem ana mitzvah. While you're doing one mitzvah, you're not obligated to do another mitzvah. And therefore, if on the way returning this item there was a poor person that you would have to give money to for tzedakah, you'll be pater to give that money to tzedakah. And therefore, you're getting hana from this person that you have to return the item to. And therefore, if you made a neder not to have hana from him, you may not return this aveda to him. The Gemara calls this Pruta de Rav Yosef, because this was Rav Yosef's chiddush, that this person that's actually returning this aveda is called a shomer sachar. He's gaining something by returning this aveda because he doesn't have to give now this pruta for tzedakah. That was the Gemara before. Now the Gemara is going to go back to the case of the Mishnah here and see if it fits with which opinion does it fit. Zok the Gemara. There's actually two versions how to learn this Gemara. Let's first see the version that we have in the Gemara inside of here. So Tanan, in the Mishnah it said, Mokaim shenoitlen aleh schar. If it's a place that people get pay for returning this lost object. So as I mentioned before, either this is the meaning of the place, or it's because you're getting compensated for taking off time from your work. So what happens with that money? So the Mishnah said, the person that is getting back his aveda, so he can't keep this money for himself, tipul hana lehektish. That money should be given to hektish. So the Gemara says, why does that money have to go to hektish? Now, it'll be well understood why that money goes to hektish. Leman damar, according to the version or the opinion that we had before. Now, what is our Mishnah speaking about? Afile b'shenichse balaveda asurim al machzer. That the case over here is that not only is the person that's receiving this aveda asur to have hana from the person that's returning it to him, but it's also in the reverse. The person that's returning it is asur to have hana from the person that is receiving it. In other words, the case of our Mishnah is, the neder here is that both of them may not have hana from each other. Not the one that found it could have hana from the one that is returning it to, and not the one that is returning it to could have hana from the one that found it. So if they can't have hana from each other, so then, and even in that case, our Mishnah is saying, Nami Mahader, that you're allowed to return to him the Aveda, because that's not considered that he's having hana from you, because he's just returning what belongs to him. But Hainu Diktani, we can understand why the Mishnah says, Mokim Shenoit Maleh Schar, that if it's a place that you would pay the person that returned the Aveda to you, you can't pay. So tipul hana lehektish, the hana of that money has to go to hektish. Why can't you pay? Because not only are you, the person that's receiving back his lost item, not allowed to have hana from the person that's returning it to him, but the neder goes the other way as well. The person that's returning it may not have hana from the person that he's returning it to. So he can't pay you for returning this aveda, you would have hana from him. And on the other hand, he can't keep it for himself either. Because if he's keeping it for himself, he's gaining from you. He's gaining from the person that's returning from him. This is pay that he should have had to pay to him, and now he's not paying it, so he's gaining. So none of them could keep it.
He's returning without anything.
Without getting paid, right? So that we understand why it says that the money has to go to Hektish, because none of them could keep this money. None of them can have enough from each other. But according to the other opinion that we said before, that if the case over here was that the Baal Aveda, the one that owns this object, so he's Aser to have, he becomes Aser. Part of the neder was that he's Aser to have Anah to the person that's returning it. So then in such a case, Loi Mahader, you would not have to return the Aveda. In other words, according to this opinion, if the case is that they're both Aser to have Anah from each other, our Mishnah is not talking about such a case. Because in such a case, the Gemara said before, you wouldn't be allowed to return the Aveda to him. Why not? Because you're gaining a certain pruta while you're returning it. You don't have to give money to a poor person, you're gaining a certain pruta. So what is our Mishnah talking about? Our Mishnah is only talking about a case where the owner of this Aveda is asked to have anah of the person that's returning it to him. But the other way around, not. If so, the question is, Amai tipul anah lehektish? Why should anah of this money go to hektish? Let the person that owes that would have to pay for this returned item, let him keep the money for himself. Or again, the question is not that let him keep it for himself. Let him pay. Let him pay the money to the person that returned it to him. Why should he return the money? Because he does not have any isser to have anah from the person that he returned it to. Let me explain this again. If these two individuals made a neder not to have anah from each other, so then nobody can keep this money. He can't keep the money for himself because then he's gaining, and he also can't pay to the person that returned the item to him because then he's gaining. Then they can't have anah from each other. But if the case over here is that the Baal Aveda is not allowed to have anah from the person that's returning to him, but on the other hand, the person that's returning is allowed to have anah from the person that is returning it to, so let him pay him. He's allowed to pay him. He's allowed to have anah from it. So why should the money fall to hektish? And says the Gemara, you're right. Achade ketani. According to this version, the Mishnah that says this halacha, it's only going on one case. It's not going on both cases of the Mishnah, meaning that when the Mishnah over here said this halacha, that it's going to have to, the money is going to have to go into hektish, the case over here is that, this is the way the Rosh explains the Gemara, according to this version of the Gemara, that the person that returned the item doesn't want to take the money. He says, I want to do the mitzvah. I don't want to have money. So he's not interested in taking the money. In such a case where he's not interested in taking the money, so now this person that's getting the lost item returned to him, he can't keep the money either. Because then he's going to be gaining from the person that returned the money to him, and he's not allowed to have anah from him. So if Take would have been a case where the person that is returning the item is ready to take it back for himself, so then true, he would be able to take this pay of money because he's allowed to have anah from him. But he doesn't want to take the money. So now we're only looking at the other aspect. There's only the neder that there is over here of the person that's receiving this item, the item is being returned to him, and he's not allowed to have anah from the person that gave it to him, so therefore he can't keep this pay that he should have paid for this. And therefore the money has to go to hektish. That's the answer of the Gemara according to this version. If you look over here in the Ran learns the Gemara and he has an opposite version of the Gemara. You can take a look if you want. You'll see that Ran has an opposite version. Okay, let's continue weiter in the Gemara. The Gemara here is now going to bring a completely different version of the machlokes regarding how we understand this Mishnah that says that when there's a neder, not to have anah, that you're not allowed to return, the Mishnah says you are allowed to return the Aveda. So there's another version of understanding this Mishnah. There are those that taught the argument that was brought before in the previous Amud, and they taught it in the following way. Pligiba Rab Ami v'Rabasi. That Rab Ami and Rabasi argued about this. When was the Mishnah talking about? Chadamar, one opinion was, Lo Yishanu, the case of the Mishnah that says that if you find this item, you're allowed to return it to this person, even though there's a neder not to have anah. What's the case over here? Elo b'shenichse balavede asurin al machzer. The case over here is that the possessions, the money of the person that you're returning the aveda to, are usher to the person that found this item, and he may not return it for this reason. Why not? O mishom prute de Rav Yosef. And this is because of by you returning this lost item, you're gaining a prute by not having to give tzedakah to a poor person while you're doing this mitzvah. This is what we mentioned in the beginning. This is called prute de Rav Yosef because Rav Yosef was the one that was mechadish this idea that because of this you call the shem misachar, because you're gaining by the fact that you don't have to give this prute to the tzedakah. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. Our Mishnah is saying over here that if the nichse balaveda is also to the machzer, so there's prute de Rav Yosef, and now the Gemara says prute de Rav Yosef loy shchiach. That's the main point here. You should read it together. Mishum prute de Rav Yosef loy shchiach. The fact that you have the prute of Rav Yosef that you're going to be gaining, that's something that's not common, and therefore you're getting no hana by returning this item, right? Avol nichse machzer asur al balaveda. What if the case over here is that the one that's returning the item is asur on the balaveda? See, the owner of this lost item may not have hana from you when you're returning this item to him. So then loy mahadele, you're not allowed to return this lost item to him. Mishom de kamahanile, because you're giving him hana. So according to this opinion, when you return to someone an aveda, even though you're giving him back you're giving him back the aveda that belongs to him. He's not having hana from your possessions, but nevertheless, his aveda, his object, was lost somewhere. If not for you returning it to him, he may have never found it, he may have never had access to it. By you returning it to him, that itself is giving him hana. So therefore you may not return it to him.
What about the mitzvah for returning?
Yeah, true, there is a mitzvah of Shavas Aveda. So you're doing a mitzvah, correct. And the mitzvah, we know, a klal is, mitzvah lav l'hanisnit, the mitzvah is not an idea of having any benefit out of this. But nevertheless, the very fact that you're placing the item for him, you're giving him it's his item. He's not having a nar from yours. But the very fact that you're placing it and giving it to him, that itself is considered to be that he's having a nar from you. That's this opinion. The other opinion is, like we learned before, even if the possessions of the one that found and is returning this Aveda is asr on the person that owns this Aveda, the one that you're returning it to, mutter. You're allowed to give him back his lost item. Because when you return to him his lost item, you're not giving him back something from yours. He's not having a nar from you, from what belongs to you. The nether was you shouldn't have a nar from your possessions. You're giving him back his lost item, and therefore you're allowed to return it to him. That's the machlekes. Okay, so this is a different version here. So now, based on this, the Gemara comes back to this Mishnah. Tanan, what did it say in the Mishnah? As we just quoted before, the Mishnah said, in a place where the person returning the item would get paid for this. So in such a case where there's a neder, what happens? Tipul hana lehektish. So you can't pay, so the hana goes to hektish. So the question is, again, the Gemara will discuss, why can't he pay? Why can't he pay for returning this item? Why does it go to hektish? Says the Gemara, bish le'imalaman omar. So it's understood according to the opinion that says, afilu b'shenichze machzir asurin an bala aveda. That the case over here is, even in a case where the possessions of the machzir is also on the bala aveda, mahader, and over here you're returning it to this person, sahaina the metaretz mokim. So this will explain, this will be, the explanation will understand when the Mishnah over here says this din of mokim that people pay for this, that he won't be able to pay you for it, and it's going to have to go to hektish. Because over here, according to this opinion, if the nichse machzir, if the possessions of the machzir is also on the Baal Aveda, so you could return the Aveda to him. But on the other hand, you can't take the money from him. Why not? Because you don't want to take the money from him. As Gemara said before, that the person is not interested in getting paid for this. So if you're not interested in getting paid for it, the person that's receiving this Aveda can't keep the money for himself either, because he can't have a nar from you. So if you're going to be Michael and he's not going to pay you, it's going to come out that he's having hana from you. Because usually he would have to pay you, and here he doesn't have to pay you. So we could explain, we could understand why this money has to go to hektish. But according to the opinion that says that's not the case of the Mishnah. If the case over here is that the possessions, the money of the one that's returning the Aveda is going to be asr to the person that he's returning the Aveda to, so then loy mahader. So then you're not even allowed to return it. That's not what our Mishnah is talking about. Our Mishnah is talking about the reverse. That the case over here is that the nechasim of the one that you're returning the Aveda to is also to the person that's returning the Aveda to him. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. If so, heichi mitaretz mokem. So how are we going to explain over here what the Mishnah says, that in a case where people pay for this, so then the money has to go to Hektish. Why does the money have to go to Hektish? Why can't he keep the pay for himself? If he can't pay to the person that's returning the item to him because he can't give him any anah, but why can't he keep it for himself? Okay. He over here, according to this opinion, he doesn't have any issa to have anah from the person that's giving him the lost item. Okay, so if there's pay, why shouldn't he be able to keep it for himself? Okay. So the Gemara says, Kashya. This taka remains a question. The Gemara doesn't answer this.
What?
Zok the Gemara. Okay, so that's the end of that inyan. Benegay to the Aveda. Now, interesting, the Gemara here brings up a new subject, which eventually is going to connect back to this Mishnah regarding Hektish. But the Gemara starts with a halacha, which is a halacha regarding Me'ila, which is seemingly not related to this Masechta at all. The Rishonim discuss why this is brought in here. There's one statement, and then there's another statement. The next statement is going to be connected to the Mishnah. Let's see. So the first statement that Rava said, Amar Rava, Hoysalofonov Kika Shel Hefker. A person had a bread that was Hefker. So he was walking in the street and he comes across a bread from Hefker. So according to the Ran, this is speaking about when this piece of bread that's from Hefker is in the 4 amas of the person. So what happens when you find something that's in your 4 amas? You're zeich in it. It becomes yours. So you own it now. Now this bread of Hefker, that he now is zoiche in it, he owns it, v'amar, and he says, Kika zu hektish. This bread should belong to hektish. So what happens now that it's hektish? Notla. Now he goes and picks it up, lo'eichla, to eat it. So ma'al, as soon as he picks it up to eat it, so he was ma'al, mi'ila, he misused what belongs to hektish. What's the halacha by mi'ila? So the Gemara here says, ma'al lefi kula. The me'ila is he was ma'il in the entire value of this piece of bread that he picked up to eat for himself, and then the halacha of me'ila is you have to pay back a keren, you have to pay back the principal, the value of it, and also a chaimish, an additional 1/5 of the full value of this bread that he picked up for himself to eat. However, la'yirisha l'banav. What's if this person was zeich in his bread from hektish, and again, he was zeich in his bread, and he was maktish it, now so it belongs now to hektish, and he picked it up, but not to eat for himself, but he picked it up because he's going to give it to his children, that his children should inherit this. But he didn't pick it up for himself. So now, because he didn't pick it up to use for himself, ma'al lefi toivis hana shabah. So he is using something from hektish, but he's not using the full hana for himself. So over here, he's only going to have to pay back the hektish toivas hana. Toivas hana is the amount of gain that his children appreciate for what he did, that he picked up this bread for them, and what they would be ready to pay for this hana that he's giving, for the hana that he's giving for them. That amount of the value of toivas hana. Again, toivas hana is how much a person would be ready to pay you for this, that you're picking up something for him. How much, if a person would hire you, not the value of the bread, how much a person would be ready to pay to hire you to pick up this piece of bread for him. So that is the amount that you will mile, because you didn't take it for yourself, and therefore that's what you have to pay back to hektish with a chaimish as well. Okay, this is the halacha that Rava said. Another thing here comes a shaila that was asked from Rava. Rav Chia bar Avin asks from Rava shaila. Kikari alecha. A person says that my bread should be asr on you. That was the language he used for his neder. And now what happened? You give this bread that you said should be asr on this person, you give it to him as a gift. So mao, what's the halacha? After you give it to this person as a gift, is that bread still asr on him to eat? Do I say kikari ama? In the beginning of his neder, the first word, he said, it's my bread that should be asr to you. So therefore I would say, ki'isei b'rishusei huda asr. When this bread is still in your possession, then it's asr for the other person to eat. But now that he gave it to him as a gift, so now it's mutter for him to eat. Or perhaps I should look at the second word he said in his neder. Alecha amaleh. He's saying, Kikari alecha. On you, this should be asr. What is the emphasis of alecha? Ilavei shavisei hektish. For you, this bread is considered to be hektish, meaning even if I give it to you as a gift, it's not going to change the status of hektish, that this bread is asr on you. And so it'll still be asr after it's a gift. That's the question here. Amalei, so Rava answered, Pshita, it's obvious, the aflagav the yavale b'matana, that even if he did give this bread as a gift to this person, asr, still going to be asr. The meaning of the neder kikari alecha means that I'm giving you this bread as a matana, and still it's going to be also to you. So there's different ways how to learn the continuation of the Gemara. I'll explain it according to the Ran and in Tosfos. They change a little bit the gears here in the Gemara, but according to their pshat, the Gemara's continuation is part of Rav explaining why he came to this conclusion that the neder includes even when he gives it as a gift. Because Ella kikari alecha la fukimai. Otherwise, when he makes this neder and he's saying that this bread should be also to you, what did he mean to say? So lav, don't you think? Or in the Tosfos he takes out the word lav and he says la fukidi gamve minei mignav. You're going to say that it's just excluding to say that he made a neder. If you steal this bread from me, then you won't be able to eat it. That's what he meant to say with the neder. It doesn't make any sense. When a person makes a neder, he's not thinking, he's not saying that if you're going to steal, then you won't be able to eat. What he meant to say is that I have this piece of bread, don't ask me to give it to you because I don't want to give it to you, and therefore it'll be aser even if I end up giving it to you because your mamish making me crazy about this. That's what he meant to say. So Rav is explaining that that's the only way logically to understand what this person meant to say when he said kikari alecha, even if he gives it as a gift. Amalei. So on this, Rav Chia bar Rav answers back, not necessarily. Loi, I can tell you la fuke the azmnei Allah, that what he meant to say is that if I invite you to come eat by my house, you can't eat this bread. So it's not coming to say that it would be aser if he steals it from him, but what he meant to say is if I invite you, then it'll be aser. But we could still say, though, that if he decides to give it to him as a gift, and he's not coming to invite him by his house to eat, that then it would be mutter. Kikari alecha only means when it's my bread in my house. So therefore, Rav Chia bar Rav asked on this answer of Rav, didn't agree to him, but to Rav it was pshita that kikari alecha comes to include this bread even after he gives it as a matana.